Good morning, my dear students, and welcome to the class on civics. The previous class we had dealt with the appointment of the Prime Minister under two different situations, when there is majority and when there is no majority. Then we learned about the Council of Ministers, and today we are going to learn about three important types of ministers. They are Cabinet Ministers, Ministers of State, and the Deputy Ministers. So let's take the first one, that is Cabinet Ministers. These are the most important members of the ministry, and these people hold very important portfolios in the government, like Defense Minister, Finance Minister, etc. So these are the most important members, and these are the ones who hold important portfolios in the ministry. And these people, these ministers, can be in charge of one ministry or more than one ministry. And these people have the right to attend the cabinet meetings, and these are the people who decide the policy of the government. So that's the first one about the ministers, the cabinet ministers, the most important people in the ministry, and they hold the most important portfolios. And they can be in charge of one ministry or more than one ministry, and these people have the right to attend the cabinet meetings. And these people will come together and they will decide the policy and program of the government. Now come to the second one, we have ministers of the state, and these are the second category of ministers. These people may or may not hold any portfolios. The Prime Minister may or may not consult them. These ministers are consulted only when the matters regarding their departments are discussed. And these people do not have any right to attend the cabinet meeting. So that's second one, the ministers of the state, second category of ministers. They may or may not hold any portfolios. The Prime Minister may or may not consult them. These ministers are consulted only when matters regarding their department are discussed. And these people have no right to attend the cabinet meeting. Moving on to the third one, we have deputy ministers, and these are the third category of ministers. Third category of ministers. And these people, what do? These ministers, they assist the cabinet ministers or council of ministers. And these are the junior ministers placed under the senior ministers to assist them. So the deputy ministers means these are the junior ministers placed under the senior ministers to assist them, and they do not attend the cabinet meeting. So that's third category of ministers. They are the ones to assist the cabinet or the council of ministers, and these are the junior ministers placed under the senior ministers to assist them, and these people have no right to attend the cabinet meeting. And the council of ministers will include Prime Minister, the council of ministers. Now we have learned about the three different types of ministers. Now what do you mean by the term called the council of ministers? The council of ministers will include the Prime Minister and all other ministers appointed by the President of India on the advice of Prime Minister. So council of ministers means Prime Minister and all the ministers appointed by the President of India on the advice of a Prime Minister. Now, what will be the number of ministers? What is the strength of ministers that the government can have? I hope you are clear with these three terms, the three different types of ministers that we have learned, and the term called Council of Ministers. Now we are going to learn what must be the number of ministers. Number of ministers. How many ministers can be there? The number of ministers will depend. This particular number of ministers was fixed according to the Act 2003, Act of 91st Amendment Act. The 91st First Amendment Act that was passed in 2003, they have fixed the number of ministers, and that is 15% of the strength of Lok Sabha and state legislatures. Number of ministers means 15% of the strength of Lok Sabha and the state legislatures. This is how they decide the number of ministers. And if it is a smaller state, the maximum number is 12. So the number of ministers will depend or is equal or is considered as the 15% of the strength of Lok Sabha and the state legislature. We have clear so far the three different types of ministers: the cabinet ministers, ministers of state, deputy ministers, and what do you mean by the term called the council of ministers, and the number of ministers that can have. Now, moving on to the next topic, that is, what was the term of office? How long a minister can be there in the office? The first thing to be remembered, the term. A minister can hold on to his office during the pleasure of president. Which means, as long as the president is happy with you, a person can continue as the minister. The reason is that the minister is appointed by the president of India. And so, during the pleasure of president, and second thing is that as long as they have majority in the Lok Sabha, the moment they do not have majority in the Lok Sabha, all the ministers will have to resign. So basically, a minister can hold on to his office during the pleasure of president. The reason is that these people are appointed by the president of India, and they can remain in the office as long as they have majority in the Lok Sabha. And next thing is, the council of ministers are collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. Whatever is done by the government, all the ministers have got a collective responsibility in the Lok Sabha. They cannot accuse each other that is not my department, that is his department, that is her department. So there is nothing called argument there. The ministers have got, the council of ministers have got a collective responsibility in the Lok Sabha. And next thing to be remembered is about the oath of office. When a minister takes charge, he has to take an oath of office. And what does it mean? He has to take three different promises. The first one is, the minister has to bear true faith and allegiance to the constitution, which means the minister has to respect and must be faithful to the constitution of India. Second, uphold the sovereignty and integrity of our country. Third one, a minister faithfully and conscientiously discharge the duties without any favor. These are the three important promises taken by the minister when he takes in charge of the particular ministry. First one is, be faithful to the Constitution of India, uphold the sovereignty and integrity of the country, faithfully carry out the duties without any favor. Now there is second, that is the oath of secrecy. And what does it mean? The minister will swear that he or she will not reveal to anyone any matter which is brought for consideration directly or indirectly, unless it is expected and unless it is required for the discharge of his duties. Its simple meaning, when they have the meeting, they cannot simply reveal all the things that are discussed in the meeting unless it is required for the discharge of his or her duties. So once again, oath of secrecy means the minister has to promise or has to swear that he or she will not communicate or will not reveal to anyone any matter which is brought for consideration directly or indirectly, which means when there is a discussion, when there is a meeting, I cannot directly or indirectly communicate the things that are discussed in the meeting, except it is required for the discharge of my duty. If it is my duty, that is, I am supposed to do it, I am supposed to reveal the matter to the press or to the public, or else I have to take the promise that I cannot reveal any matter that is brought for the consideration or for the meeting. That's what the term called oath of secrecy. They have to maintain the secrecy of the meeting. And every minister, as I said, must be member of either house of the parliament. And I have told you what is the option that we have. A person, if a person who is not member of a parliament. I hope you remember that particular topic. And the salaries and allowances will depend on the laws made by the parliament. So that's what the term called the term of office. So the ministers hold on to their office during the pleasure of the president, and they can remain in their office as long as they have majority in the Lok Sabha, and the Council of Ministers have got a collective responsibility in the Lok Sabha. They cannot accuse each other. The oath of office, the oath of secrecy, and every minister must be a member of either house of the parliament. The salaries and allowances will depend or will be decided by the law of a parliament. I hope you are clear with it. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is, what are the differences between the Council of Ministers and Cabinet Ministers. I hope you remember, Council of Ministers means Prime Minister and all the ministers. That is the Council of Ministers. Council of Ministers. Second one is the Cabinet Ministers. Cabinet Ministers. Now let's go on to the first distinction between these two. Council of Ministers will consist of all the categories of ministers. Consist of all categories of ministers. Because it includes the Prime Minister and all the ministers appointed by the President on the advice of a Prime Minister. So the Council of Ministers will consist of all the categories of ministers, but it consists of only a small group with senior ministers. So Cabinet Ministers do not include all the categories of ministers. It includes a small group of senior ministers. And second difference, the Prime Minister may or may not consult. I have told you, may or may not consult these people. But here, these are the most trusted people of the Prime Minister. Most trusted people of the Prime Minister means the Prime Minister will have to consult them always. And these people, Council of Ministers, they have rare meetings. It means they do not meet very often, they meet very rarely. And these Cabinet Ministers, they meet frequently. It means they have their meeting very often. And last one, according to the Constitution of India, the President acts on the advice of the Council of Ministers. That is what is written in the Constitution of India. The Prime Minister will act on the advice of a Council of Ministers. But when it comes to the reality, when it comes to the day-to-day activities, it is the Cabinet that advises the Prime Minister. Cabinet Ministers advise the Prime Minister. But in the Constitution, it is written that the Prime Minister will be advised by the Council of Ministers. But when it comes to the reality, it is the Cabinet Ministers who will advise the Prime Minister of India. These are the four differences between the Council of Ministers and Cabinet Ministers. So once again, Council of Ministers will include all the categories of ministers. cabinet ministers, it is a small group consisting of the senior ministers. Prime Minister may or may not consult them, but these are the trusted people of the Prime Minister. They have very rare meeting, but they have good frequent meetings. In reality, the Prime Minister is advised by the Council of Ministers, but when it comes to reality, when it comes to day-to-day activities, the Prime Minister is advised by the cabinet ministers. So these are the things that I want you to understand clearly, the different categories of ministers, the term called Council of Ministers, the term of office, oath of secrecy, the distinctions between the differences between the Council of Ministers and the Cabinet Ministers. So it is clear for you. Can you go through the video once again? And I have sent the notes. Kindly complete the notes. Thank you.